If now we try to restore this buried culture from the relics that remain, playing Cuvier to the scattered bones of Crete, let us remember that we are engaging upon a hazardous kind of historical television, in which imagination must supply the living continuity in the gaps of static and fragmentary material artificially moving but long since dead. Crete will remain inwardly unknown until its secretive tablets find their Champollion. As we see them, self-pictured in their art, the Cretans curiously resemble the double acts so prominent in their religious symbolism. Male and female alike have torsos narrowing pathologically to an ultra-modern waist. Nearly all are short in stature, slight, and supple of build, graceful in movement, athletically trim. Their skin is white at birth. The ladies, who court the shade, have fair complexions conventionally pale, but the men, pursuing wealth under the sun, are so tamed and ruddy that the Greeks will call them, as well as the Phoenicians, Phoenikes, the purple ones, redskins. The head is rather long than broad. The features are sharp and refined. The hair and eyes are brilliantly dark, as in the Italians of today. These Cretans are apparently a branch of the, quote, Mediterranean race. Current anthropology divides post-Neolithic Europeans into three types, respectively preponderating in North, Central, and Southern Europe. Firstly, Nordic man, long-headed, tall, and fair of skin and eyes and hair. Secondly, Alpine man, broad-headed, of medium height, with eyes tending to gray and hair to brown. And thirdly, Mediterranean man, long-headed, short, and dark. But no people is exclusively any of these races. The men, as well as the women, wear their hair partly in coils on the head or the neck, partly in ringlets on the brow, partly in tresses falling upon the shoulders or the breast. The women add ribbons for their curls, while the men, to keep their faces clean, provide themselves with a variety of razors, even in the grave. The dress is as strange as the figures. On their heads, most often bare, the men have turbans or tam o'shanters, the women magnificent hats of early 20th century style. The feet are usually free of covering, but the upper classes may bind them in white leather shoes, which among women may be daintily embroidered at the edges, with colored beads on the straps. Ordinarily, the male has no clothing above the waist. There he wears a short skirt or waistcloth, occasionally with a codpiece for modesty. The skirt may be slit at the side in working men. In dignitaries and ceremonies it reaches in both sexes to the ground. Occasionally, the men wear drawers, and in winter a long outer garment of wool or skins. The clothing is tightly laced about the middle, for men as well as women are resolved to be, or seem, triangularly slim. To rival the men at this point, the women of later periods resort to stiff corsets, which gather their skirts snugly around their hips and lift their bare breasts to the sun. It is a pretty custom among the Cretans that the female bosom should be uncovered, or revealed by a diaphanous chemise. No one seems to take offense. The bodice is laced below the bust, opens in a careless circle, and then, in a gesture of charming reserve, may close in a Medici collar at the neck. The sleeves are short, sometimes puffed. The skirt, adorned with flounces and gay tints, widens out spaciously from the hips, stiffened, presumably with metal ribs or horizontal hoops. There are in the arrangement and design of Cretan feminine dress a warm harmony of colors, a grace of line, a delicacy of taste that suggest a rich and luxurious civilization, already old in its arts and wiles. In these matters, the Cretans had no influence upon the Greeks. Only in modern capitals have their styles triumphed. Even staid archaeologists had given the name La Parisienne to a portrait of a Cretan lady with profulgent bosom, shapely neck, sensual mouth, impudent nose, and a persuasive, provocative charm. She sits saucily before us as part of a frieze in which high personages gaze upon some spectacle that we will never see. The men of Crete are evidently grateful for the grace and adventure that women give to life, for they provide them with costly means of enhancing their loveliness. The remains are rich in jewelry of many kinds. Hairpins of copper and gold, stick pins adorned with golden animals or flowers, or heads of crystal or quartz, rings or spirals of filigree gold mingling with the hair, fillets or diadems of precious metal binding it, rings and pendants hanging from the ear, plaque and beads and chains on the breasts, bands and bracelets on the arm, finger rings of silver, steatite, agate, carnelian, amethyst, or gold. The men keep some of the jewelry for themselves. If they are poor, they carry necklaces and bracelets of common stones. If they can afford it, they flaunt great rings engraved with scenes of battle or the chase. The famous cupbearer wears on the biceps of his left arm a broad band of precious metal, and on the wrist a bangle inlaid with agate. Everywhere in Cretan life, man expresses his vainest and noblest passion, the zeal to beautify. This use of man to signify all humanity reveals the prejudice of a patriarchal age, and hardly suits the almost matriarchal life of ancient Crete. For the Minoan woman does not put up with any oriental seclusion, any purdah or harem. There is no sign of her being limited to certain quarters of the house or to the home. She works there, doubtless, as some women do even today. She weaves clothing in baskets, grinds grain, and bakes bread, but also she labors with men in the fields and the potteries. She mingles freely with them in the crowds. She takes the front seat at the theater and the games. She sweeps through Cretan society with the air of a great lady bored with adoration. And when her nation creates its gods, it is more often in her likeness than in man's. Sober students, secretly and forgivably enamored of the mother image in their hearts, bow down before her relics and marvel at her domination.